Hello everyone, here's another video on the channel. For those who aren't subscribed yet, please subscribe and leave a like. If you enjoy the content, feel free to use the comments section. Today we're going to talk a bit about contradictory stimuli and inducing madness. This is pretty much the main focus for which I created my channel, where I analyze the stimuli and rewards that are introduced into the environment through that Pavlovian trigger, right? The one used in experiments conducted by Pavlov about a century ago with dogs to see how it works, right? By ringing a bell and having the dog associate it with food and all that. But there were other experiments too, okay? Ones you won't easily find out there, because some of them were more forbidden. These were done not just in the Soviet Union, but in other countries as well, right? It's about how a dog, a human, and other beings react when contradictory stimuli are so conflicting that they drive them insane. So, for example, there were some people in the last century who did experiments with dogs where they would hit the dog, and a short time later, they'd give it a huge piece of raw steak, which the dog loves. And the dog would go crazy over time because in a short period of time, the dog would get some really tasty food and get beaten. So, this in the medium and long term ends up driving the dog crazy. The dog doesn't even know anymore. It turns into a zombie. And how is this affecting people? Nowadays, how does this fit into the key to relationships? Women, especially, are really affected by this. So when you look at why it's so hard these days to have a serious relationship, to date, to get married, to have kids, why women have become so individualistic, so selfish, so narcissistic, men have their flaws too, as we point out here, and there are some masculine hypocrisies as well. But now, focusing on how this damages women's brains, I can make a video about contradictory stimuli in men too. There's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about there as well. But when it comes to women, here's the thing. I'll give you an example of contradictory stimuli on television, for instance. On Rito Globo, on the journal Oje, for example, which is a lighter, more relaxed news program, they cover the main news stories, and then every now and then, at the end, they do a segment that's a bit more laid back. Or even on Fatima Bernardes' show, usually in the morning or around lunchtime. They'll air, I don't know, a story about an elderly couple from the countryside of Minas Gerais who are celebrating their diamond anniversary, 75 years of marriage, and talk about how beautiful that is, how love can last so long, and so on. Women see that and think it's beautiful, right? Because honestly, that's a relationship that lasted 3/4 of a century. So women end up really liking what they see and think they're going to be able to have that too. But then, on the same night, there's a show, Amore Sexo, with Fernanda Lima, where she openly talks about these things. For women, it's okay to sleep with someone on the first date, do whatever you want, and so on. And I'm just quoting here, if a woman wants to do it, sleep with someone on the first date, do whatever she wants. I always make this very clear because the internet is full of people with bad intentions who like to cut certain parts to make it look like you're making a moral judgment. I've already said, if women want to post pictures of their butts, want to sleep with someone on the first date, do whatever you want. I'm just pointing it out here. Stimuli of and the reward, and what does this cause in the environment, the contradictions that come with it, right? And why relationships are failing, and some of the consequences that certain behaviors bring. From a biological point of view, not a moral one, just to be clear, okay? As I always make very clear, that's the point. So, like, in a span of 12 hours, a woman sees couples who have been together for 75 years, and at the same time, she's also being encouraged to do whatever she wants, her body, my rules, I do what I want, whatever, I'm not afraid of being judged, we're all sluts, and so on. So when this keeps getting repeated, sometimes it drives people crazy. Why? Because people don't know what's right and what's wrong. They lose their sense of direction. The person simply doesn't know what to do. That's an example I gave from television. How is this being applied on social media? There are tactical agents. In a psychological war, you have tactical agents. The tactical agents are agents without even knowing that they are. I've mentioned this here a few times already. They're bloggers, they're those internet sharks, those internet millionaires who are always selling courses and so on. And I've already said that I think these guys are money-making machines. I admire the work they do. They have an incredible talent for selling products to others. I'm not judging what they do, whether it's a scam or charlatanism. That's not the focus of my channel. I'm just saying that these guys create a lot of stimuli in the environment, especially targeting men. People want to have that flashy lifestyle surrounded by women and sports cars and so on. We know there's no way everyone can make money, especially in a country like Brazil. But when it comes to women, bloggers really play that tactical agent role, right? In the psychological warfare, they're the ones who spread those conflicting stimuli in the environment for women. A lot of things bloggers say, they don't even know where it comes from, and that's where the agents from the underworld come in. Who are these underworld agents? I know a few, okay? Obviously, these aren't the kind of people you can bring onto a channel to do a live stream. It's very unlikely they'd even accept an invitation. These are people who live in the shadows of the internet. There are people who have even commented on my channel saying they know one or another of them. Also, there are channels that you know too, but you don't talk about it much. These are the guys who create some of the slang you see on the internet, both in the United States and here in Brazil. From cattle and cringe to some feminine terms. That's a boy, trash, macho, scumbag. None of this happens by chance, okay? Some people are laughing a lot out there. Many of these underworld agents are expensive. Ronquipio, right? For those who don't know, Ronquipio is that guy who's already accepted that the world is messed up. He just comes to watch the circus burn and have a laugh. He's not someone who's trying to fix anything anymore. These guys work a lot in closed forums. Not everything is on the deep web, okay? There are a lot of hidden forums, more underground, even on the surface web. So these slang terms, expressions, and so on, these guys use them a lot in closed circles. And when they decide, like, hey, let's release this to the herd, for them, herd is pretty much everyone, okay? Not just Manjita men. It's people who don't understand how these things come about. They put it out there, and then you'll see BBC, El País, G1, UOL, all saying they know where these terms come from. They'll say, oh, this came from such and such place, from such and such artist, but they don't know, not at all. These guys, these journalists, they don't even know what they're talking about, okay? So these terms don't come from where they say they do. And the bloggers, right? Important tactical agents in this whole thing who drive women crazy. They do a lot of that too. They're manipulated, but they also know how to manipulate. And all of them think, both the famous bloggers and their followers, that they're thinking for themselves. It's really hard to think for yourself. But if you're going to be a copy and paste of something, let it be of Aristotle, Plato, or other great minds, not digital influencers. So, after these terms get thrown around on social media, the bloggers start spreading them. So, if you notice, those who are already more detached, who are already deep into red pill or are black pill, or are guys who just don't care about anything anymore, I don't recommend deleting Instagram. Instagram is an amazing social laboratory for you to understand what's going on. I went without Instagram for a while, about 6 or 7 months, quite a while ago. And after I came back, I don't plan on quitting again. It's a really interesting place to observe society. But for those who still have a lot of issues with stimulation, like constantly looking at beautiful women, stalking your ex, that kind of thing, it's better to just delete it and not get involved, because it's a pretty toxic environment. So you really need to be well immunized to deal with that kind of thing. So the bloggers, the so-called influencer bloggers, some women who marry rich guys and also have a lot of followers, this happens a lot. I mentioned it in that video about the few tortures in the roulette of love, where women who end up marrying rich guys really start to influence and dictate behavior, especially in small and medium-sized towns in the Brazilian countryside, even affecting how relationships work, which ends up impacting the guys too. There, a guy who has a girlfriend who's chill will see his girlfriend looking at a more interesting lifestyle and end up taking it out on him. So these women end up having a huge influence on the minds of other women, especially single women. So, for example, you'll see several bloggers at the same time. In a short period of time, too. Like, in the morning they say one thing, and at night they say something else. They might very well talk about self-love, like keep things to yourself, don't exchange energy with the wrong people, basically discouraging casual sex. And just a few hours later, those same bloggers and others will tell you to enjoy the journey, that some people are just passing through your life, that you really have to make the most of it, and if it didn't work out now, it's just because it's not the end yet. And a woman will never admit that she's influenced by other people on Instagram. Don't expect that from her. Actually, nobody thinks they're influenced by anything. It's like I said, I admit that I'm influenced, but I'm trying to be influenced by the greatest minds in history. So it's really hard to have an idea that's 100% your own. You might be able to analyze some other detail, some other nuance from your own perspective. Now, the The entirety of human behavior, if even Aristotle himself only started speaking up at 35 after losing to Plato, just imagine these people on Instagram in 2021. So, you see, there's a massive difference in intelligence between the great minds and these pathetic minds out there. It's just like the books by Esther Villar. Esther Villar is one of the greatest writers of all time. In this context of post-second wave feminism, I recommend you read her book, and then you'll see. Compared to the books by today's feminists, that's how it is. They're really lacking in content. It's not just about ideological disagreement, they're genuinely poor books. Esther Villar took a very cold, analytical look at what feminism became. She analyzed how women used to tame men. So there are a lot of old school feminists you'll come across too. You'll find some English ones, there's labor feminists who are very realistic, very smart as well, but they're worlds apart from this crowd chasing clout that you see around today. So these bloggers are experts at throwing out these contradictory signals into the environment. Sometimes it's all about, and on the spiritual side too. They do this thing where you have to connect with nature, with God, with this all-powerful force. And then just a few hours later, they'll go all in on materialism. In that mode, what is it like? What really matters is material things, just your personal achievements and so on. Sometimes they'll say you need to have a family and that it's something beautiful. And then later on, they'll say you need to learn to enjoy your own company. They'll also say that men, actually, I'm going to make a whole video just about this. But for example, there's this woman, she's so desperate, a single woman, that she's demanding loyalty from a guy she's just hooking up with. She says a real man respects even a hookup, but then just a few hours later, they'll say, no one belongs to anyone, don't ask for explanations from someone who treats you like an option. Like, don't make someone a priority if they treat you like an option. So, you see, there's so many contradictory messages about this. Whether you should be promiscuous or not, just be promiscuous. Energy is everything. What matters is the journey, and you'll learn from your mistakes. So women end up going crazy here. They don't even know which trend to follow anymore. A woman might say, oh, but I don't follow influencers. That's not my thing, whatever. But at some point, someone will admit, yeah, I'm influenced. This is the kind of thing where someone really has to be honest with themselves and not care about other people's opinions or outside validation, because admitting something like that isn't easy, you know? But that's how it is, right? You should always pay attention to women's behavior, not just their words. So you'll notice this a lot, this key point, you know? That's why... And then, as a result, women are influenced by these influencers, who are really powerful tactical agents. In shaping the modern female playground, the followers start to copy these behaviors. So what we always talk about here, Friday and Saturday, it's gin and tonic, showing off, boat parties, little get-togethers, gated communities, and Sunday too. It's that little phrase, love notes. Love conquers all. Love yourself. Love your own company. It's always those ready-made little phrases, letting go, I don't know what, cutting off toxic people. The toxic ones are always others, never themselves. So Sunday night is actually a contradiction compared to the life women post about on Friday and Saturday. So where does this behavior come from? She's copying this behavior, she's repeating it. It comes from the more influential women she follows, who in turn follow even more influential women. And those women are doing exactly what the guys from the underworld are playing at. The guys are laughing at all this mess. So as we head into the final stretch of the video, pay close attention to these behaviors and contradictory signals, because it's not just on Globo TV. It's all over Instagram, all the time. You'll see this in big corporations too, where these companies also send out mixed signals in the workplace, saying things like, we value our employees, and all that, you're important to the company, and so on. And they exploit their employees, giving them impossible targets to hit. At the same time, the company claims to value diversity, all that talk about every sexual orientation, gender, and race. But when a poorer client shows up, the company treats them badly. So yeah, this happens a lot, okay? What these big TV companies advertise is one thing, and the reality is something else. It's the same thing on Instagram. What they put out there in that environment, where they say they're detached people who love themselves, who love their own company, and so on. But if you look at it in practice, they're always depressed, anxious, and looking for a great love. So that's today's message, okay? Just a little introduction about how this drives people crazy, alright? A big hug to everyone.